Thanks for checking out the Ideal Impact Podcast, where we discuss 5 key skills and the impact they can have on your life, as well as some major issues in society. You ready to get after it? Hey everybody, so before we get into the show, I have a question for you. I want to know who out there wants to unlock their true potential and transform their life on an extraordinary level. So there's no secret formula out there. Results come from long-term consistency, which is built through discipline. So do me a favor and take a moment to imagine what you could accomplish simply by taking consistent action towards your goals. For you, maybe that's crushing 3 workouts week in and week out, or maybe it's increasing your income by making 100 sales calls every week, no matter what. Or maybe it's simply sticking to a consistent schedule with your spouse to improve your marriage. So imagine what life could look like by building that relentless consistency. So here's the exciting news. Achieving this feat is 100% within your grasp, and we know this because we have done it. And we're here to empower you with the tools and guidance you need to cultivate relentless consistency and success in every aspect of your life. No longer will you face this journey alone, because we are in your corner, ready to support you every step of the way with 3 phenomenal options to kickstart your transformation. Option number 1, our monthly Ideal Connect calls. So these calls are extremely affordable, and they help inspire and equip you with the practical strategies that you need. As a bonus, all attendees receive Ideal merch that changes each month. So check out our YouTube channel to witness the transformative power of these calls for yourself. Option number 2, the Ideal Light Package. Perfect for those who already have a clear vision of the actions that they need to take, but maybe just require some external accountability to build that unwavering consistency. This option will help you stay on track and conquer your goals. Option number 3, this is the full-on Ideal Impact Coaching Package. Our comprehensive coaching is tailor-made for individuals seeking to discover their purpose, define their own success, and take on challenges to embark on a profound journey of personal growth and fulfillment. So if this got you fired up, go ahead and head over to idealimpactpodcast.com. Again, that's idealimpactpodcast.com, and sign up for a free coaching consult to learn more about the transformative possibilities that await you. All right, that's enough for me. It's time to dive into the show and immerse yourself in the incredible insights and experiences of our host and guest. Let's get after it, everybody.
We're live.
Oh man, that was like the least Randy We're Live I think I've ever heard.
Motivation was down on that one. The voice before that threw me off.
Is it because of your plumbing issues on your house? Is you're just like not feeling it?
No, it's been a long couple of days, and it's been a long morning. So, well, it's not, I guess it's not morning anymore. It's afternoon, but yes, spent a lot of hours doing plumbing recently this week, and I'm not enjoying it.
Sounds awful. Well, the good news is we're on live and we're recording now with our good friend here, Leon Wright. So we're going to go ahead and share our wins for the week thus far, and then we're going to jump into Leon's background and get started with the show. Sound good, fellas?
Sounds good.
All right. Who wants to kick it? Randy, why don't you kick us off, since you shared the plumbing issues? So like, what's the win that's going on to kind of counterbalance the opportunity areas in the house there?
All right. So the win here, like obviously the plumbing issues are not a good thing, but the win is like normally when I have an issue like this that becomes a bigger issue, I completely lose my shit. And I did not do that this time. So like, you know how home repairs go, like you start off and you're like, this is going to be an easy job that should take me an hour. And then 8 hours later and 4 trips to Home Depot, you're starting to get a little agitated. So, I mean, that did happen, but instead of me completely freaking out and throwing stuff and swearing and breaking stuff, I did not do that. I was able to keep my cool.
Yeah, you mean like when I was redoing our last house and I lost my cool, created a way bigger hole in the drywall than I needed to, and on top of that cut the wrong wire because I was pissed off and wasn't paying attention, and ended up having to like rewire the entire outlet, like stuff like that, right?
It's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sounds all right.
Good. Leon, you want to take the next win?
Yeah. So the biggest one for me right now is just I booked another trip out to Des Moines, Iowa, in mid-August with a guy I met through this program that we're in, Emerge Abundance. So we booked it August 16th to the 19th, we're heading out. My wife's actually coming with us too because they have the state fair that's going on. So apparently it's the second biggest state fair in the country. So I'm pretty looking forward to that. And then getting some broker meetings set up and touring some spots.
Heck yeah, man. That sounds awesome. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm just going to take a guess that the biggest state fair in the country is Texas. But I don't know that for sure. But I would just guess that Texas has the biggest state fair because it seems like a Texas thing to have, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah. I'm sure there's tons of smoked brisket and fried cheese and all the fair goodies. Oh, yeah. Fair food is the best.
Only thing I know about Iowa is wrestling and Dan Gable. That's the only thing I know from there.
And corn, right?
And corn.
A lot of corn.
Well, I know Nebraska has a lot of corn.
I think Iowa has a lot of corn too, and then Idaho's potatoes.
They are potatoes. I know
and Ohio's meth, so that's cool.
Meth capital of the U.S.
Our number one. And human trafficking. Ohio's really bad for that.
Yeah, we're killing it.
I can't wait to get home. Really, yeah.
Dude, I'm in Philly right now. You don't have to tell me about meth and all that crap. Right up the street.
Oh man. All right, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that win, Leon. And then for me, the biggest win that I've had thus far this week is definitely determining the thing that I want. So I'm reading 10x is easier than 2x. For anybody out there, that book is amazing. Leon nodding his head because we were at the same event and we all ended up getting gifted that book. But I was like, it really made me think about what I want out of life. And that's freedom of time. Like that was the biggest thing that drove me away from the W-2 job and being at Progressive, was that somebody else was in control of my life. So this realization today led me to suggesting and talking to Randy about restructuring how we have things and, moving my coaching calls at least all to 1 week. And then the other week will be podcasts, then coaching calls, and rotating those because it gives me more flexibility with my time and more predictability in my schedule. So that was a huge win for me, and it alleviated a lot of that like overwhelming feeling that comes with being a new entrepreneur and navigating this world and figuring everything out. So I'm super stoked for that.
Awesome, man.
Cool. All right. Well, everyone, by this time, all like 14 of our listeners know Randy and I. So why don't we get to know Leon here and go ahead and share, your background. Start at the beginning, like when you were growing up and kind of what you're doing today and what's going on right now. And then we'll ask you some questions out of curiosity along the way there.
Yeah, not a problem. Man, I'll go back to the beginning just because it's a big part of my story in general. I grew up not with a lot. My parents were separated before I was born. We lived in a small trailer park in rural Pennsylvania. I say about the first time I think I got the taste of how kids were in school was I was at the bus stop. Like my first bus stop when I was going to kindergarten, and the older kids like teased me, right? So it was like the initial start of my shutdown of not wanting to be seen by anybody, which made me nervous to do things like this when I did my first one. So it was a whole psychological thing that I still work through, but I worked through it like 2 years ago, finally. But going through that, my mom and at the time stepdad had separated as well, and then we moved in third grade. I think I moved. I'm sorry, I didn't. No, they separated later. So halfway through, I forget, sometime in elementary school, I don't remember the year, they separated, so I moved away.
Well, that was like forever ago at this point, right? Were you're
correct.
Like 65?
Whoa. Not that old. It's like 47. No, I'm just kidding. It was almost 30 years ago. So, I'm 37 now, but it was a big part of everything that just kind of transpired. And I was always a very shy kid growing up, very reserved, and it led into all the way up into until college. So there were some times where I was a kid. So one of the biggest driving factors and the stuff that I'm working on now and trying to make sure that I never have to go back to is I had periods or days where we didn't have heat or hot water, or we had to ration it because we didn't have enough money to get us through the winter. So I'd wake up at 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning to get ready for school and go sit down, turn the heat on real quick so I could heat my clothes up so they weren't like freezing cold when I put them on. so stuff like that. And it's nothing against my mom or my stepdad at the time, but that's just how it was. And, it's something that drove me to never want to go back to that. So fast forward going into college, I picked up a recreational activity called drinking, and it really opened me up, and I met a whole lot of people. I became that like person that I'd always feared to be like when I wasn't drinking. And ultimately it led me down the really, really long 15-year path of pretty much self-destruction. So like I didn't grow personally probably for those 15 years after leaving school, probably even some in school. I always had an excuse for this or that. I met my now wife in college the year I actually turned 21. So we've been together now for 16 years. So she's been through it all too. And, like I said, it led me down a really, really dark path, but I always showed up for work, but it got to a point where I stopped showing up at home. And the first time it really kind of hit home is in August of 2014. My wife asked me to figure out something and go to AA or whatever it was, Alcoholics Anonymous. So I decided, a family member helped me get to a meeting. I didn't really do much. I gotta be honest. I wanted it, but I didn't want it. I guess I didn't want it enough. A week later, I found out my first son was going to be born. We took a trip to Ireland, and then took a trip to Ireland, like 60 days sober, which was not fun at all.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, because the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking Ireland, I was actually just talking to my dad about taking a trip there within the next couple of years. And I'm like, yeah, we got to go to Jameson. We got to go to Guinness. Like, those are the first things that come to mind. So, I mean, yeah, that had to have been kind of wild to go there 60 days into sobriety.
It was. And what made it worse is her friend was actually over there for a wedding, which is why we went. And my whole thing was like, usually when I plan stuff, it was like, all right, cool, we're going to Ireland. I'm going to go to this bar and that bar. So that didn't really pan out. And we actually ended the second to last day, we actually went to a whiskey distillery, which was cool. But at the same time, it was probably not a good spot for me. So that ended up ultimately leading into going back and starting drinking again and, and lying about it and telling my wife, like, I needed it to calm my head down because it's what it did at that point, but I was using it to, the extremes of it was every day. It was drinking until I fell asleep, and then waking up and, dealing with it all over again. So it got to a point where like I went back out and it was a quick, long 10 months, if that makes any sense. It just progressed right back in every day and, started going into the mornings and stuff like that. So it got really bad. And Mother's Day of 2019, Mother's Day weekend 2019, on Saturday before Mother's Day, we were all down the shore. My wife just turned to me and said, my brother's going to take you home and I'm going to move into my parents' house with the kids. And I had 2 kids at this time, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know what to say. So I just said, okay. And I grabbed my stuff and I left. I went home. Did what any successful alcoholic does. I went home and went right to the liquor store, which was probably not a smart move, but ended up going to a meeting the next day. And then the day after that, because I drank that day again, because there was still some left. And then I ended up pouring out just the last little bit, which was surprising. And then the following Monday was the last day. So May 19th, I think it was May 19th, 13th. I think it's 13th. May 13th of 2019 was the last day I had to drink. So it was a little over 4 years ago. And since then, it took me a really long time to figure out like who I was again, like figure out like stuff I love. Like I said, I did it from 21 to 30, 34, right? And like I said, it took me a good year. I go through this story because it's important for me. It took me a year to really figure out like how to like sleep again and do like normal stuff. And then it took me another year to figure out like stuff that I started enjoying again. I'm thankful for my kids because they were able to help me like realize like stuff like I tell people in meetings all the time, like I like Star Wars, like I do, and I guess I was ashamed of it before for whatever reason. Like I'm not like a Star Wars. I don't want to dress up. I don't have hair, so I can't do my hair. I guess I could be Yoda, right?
Your debit card, and I get embarrassed when I have to pull that out and give it to people. I didn't have a choice. It was either go with blue
or Mickey Mouse, and I already had a blue Chase card, and I'm like, I don't want to mix up the business and the personal card, so I'm like, give me Darth Vader.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
No.
there's nothing like that.
People
So,
actually compliment it all the time. They're like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, well, I feel like a dork.
I have a Donald Duck tattoo on my leg.
Hey, tribal, and that's even
uh,
all right, Leon, back to you.
no, it's all good, man. So, like I said, year two, we ended up selling our house. It was right after the pandemic. So like I got sober like 10 months before COVID shut everything down. And because I like literally did as much as I could, I wanted to do as much as I could. I surrounded myself with the right people, which is very important, even into my next stage of my story. Surrounded myself with the right people that were doing the things that I wanted to do. So when COVID hit, it wasn't as big of a deal for me. I don't like, as much as we're doing this, I don't really like, I'd rather do this in person, but you know, I'm not going to fly to Texas for a podcast interview. No offense, Kyle. So,
you don't want to come down here. It's too hot.
I was already there once. I'm good. So like I said, it got to 2 years. We ended up selling our house and bought a new house. Actually for my wife's business, probably the best thing we could have done. And I'll get into that later, but you know, it was the summer of 2021 now, and my wife goes down the shore every summer. So right now she's away. So, you know, affording me time like this to stay late. I'm in my work trailer because I'm going to dinner after this. So it's 2021, actually June of 2021. I joined. I don't know if you guys know Nick Santanasasso. He's a Tony Robbins guy. So he had a Facebook Live, and I ended up joining it and listened to his, you know, the one hour thing. Got to the end of the call, and I was like, something in me was just like, this is what you need to go to the next step. Something wrong. There's something wrong up here in my head still that is blocking me from going further. Whether it's not something that I wanted to share, or if I wasn't getting from AA, it was nothing to take away from that. It was just something else in my life that I needed. So I got to the end of the call, and he said, what's holding you back from making the commitment? And I said, I had to talk to my wife. It's a typical excuse. They always know how to answer it. So he said, all right, could you call her right now? I was like, sure. So I called her and I said, hey, this is what I want to do. This is how much it is. What do you think? She said, go for it. And I went, shit. Because I was too afraid to do it. I was too afraid to take a chance on myself because I've never done it before, not to that extent. And I didn't know the power of self-improvement, of coaching. I didn't grow up around that. I grew up, you know, very, very modest, very, you know, again, living paycheck to paycheck. If we were lucky, paycheck to paycheck. So I ended up doing that. And that's actually where I met Jamie Gruber. So they had 4 calls in the beginning, 4 calls. It was like it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then they ultimately switched it to weekly. But they did a mindset call on Mondays. They did a relationship call on Tuesdays. They did a wealth call on Wednesdays and a health call on Thursdays. So Alex is actually doing the relationship calls, and Jake Havron did the health calls, and then Jamie Gruber did the wealth calls. So as soon as I met Jamie, it's the first time, like everything he's talking about, like I have no idea what he's saying, but he's doing something that I've never thought of, but I want to do. So it took me a while. I did that. I met a lot of great people in there. And I think I was in there for 9 or 10 months. And by the end of my subscription, before I did that, you know, Jamie had floated out that he's in this GoBundance community, and they have an Emerge program, which leads into Ascend, which is now, I know it's just Emerge now, but, you know, I'd asked him about joining it in January of 2022, and he said no. And he told me no because he wanted me to focus on the thing that I was committed to right now. And me personally, as part of my story, and I'll probably get into this at some point, but like I have that, like it's like the shiny object syndrome, right? Like I think, oh well, I got to do the next thing, and then I'm going to try to do all of it, and I'm not going to get any of it. So that's just how my mind tends to work, and I've worked very hard at trying to unwind all of that. So eventually, my program ran out, and then I joined Emerge a little over a year ago. Met Kyle because apparently I post a lot in the group. So it was just something that I was told to do. So like I take direction very well. I take direction very well now since I've gotten sober. But it's just like, and I realized like I started to make a lot of connections. I started to know a lot of people in different areas, and I started just asking questions about different things, whatever it was, how uncomfortable it made me feel. And then, as of last year, I opened up 3 LLCs in my name alone. So again, my shiny object syndrome was like, let's just do all of it in one shot against my wife's direction. She warned me, which I bring up, she doesn't rub it in my face, but I'm like, you told me, I get it. I understand. So I joined actually a coaching program for short-term rentals. I hired a multifamily coach, and I opened up an passive Amazon store, which is not something I really want to talk about because it's not going very well right now, but it is what it is. It's an investment I made, and we'll see what happens. So that one wasn't supposed to be as much time as it is, but it's been a lot of time that I didn't think. And I was in the Emerge group. So again, they were away. So I was like, oh, I have time. And in reality, it was like 4 weeks of time. And then the family comes back. So I did all that. And, it went very well. I ended up going out to Des Moines last December. Since December, I went to Des Moines, Iowa, which again, I don't want to say this. How do I say this? I probably picked the worst time. I guess I could have gone in February, right? But I was like, I'm going to go to Des Moines and not Jacksonville in December. So I went to Des Moines. Thankfully, it was nice out. It was a very good trip still. That's dirty. And then January, we went on a cruise, family cruise, which ended up being cold. The last 3 times I think we've been to Florida has been cold. So I don't know if I should go anymore. And then I went to Jacksonville.
To Texas, and maybe you'll bring some cold weather down with you so I can stop sweating for 5 minutes.
So, and then, I went to Jacksonville in February. I took March off. say that jokingly, because then in April we went to the Emerge event in Austin, where I met a lot of good people, and I met a connection that I never would have met had I not gone. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. We had the money, but we didn't. It's a lot of stuff that I'm putting off the now just to kind of get to the later, which delayed gratification is not easy for me whatsoever. I want everything like right now, and I want to know it now. I don't want to learn it. I just want to know it. I want somebody to explain it all to me, and then I'll figure it out. So did that, and then as of, I guess, the last 2 months, I've booked the Chicago event, finalizing our Airbnb for that. So I got a couple people. I'm just trying to finalize the number. And then I booked a trip out to Des Moines, Iowa. So in August, I'm going to Des Moines. And in the end of September, I'm going to Chicago. And I signed up for TSA pre-check because it's going to be flying a lot. Might as well have it.
Yeah, I wish I would have had that one. I just flew to Cleveland and then back. And actually flying to Cleveland wasn't bad. Like TSA wasn't bad, but flying out of Cleveland, I should say, the line when I got, and I will give them credit, they moved it along very well while still being very thorough, which I appreciate because I like flying and being safe because I hate flying in general. But the line was just, Randy, you've been to Cleveland Airport. So TSA was all the way when you're facing the airport, all the way to the left. That's where you go in through security. The line was almost all the way down the entire concourse, and they moved it pretty quick. But yeah, that sucks.
That's what you get for traveling on 4th of July weekend.
It was July 3rd, but
yeah, well, that's the weekend of 4th of July.
Callie flew home the Monday before, or flew back to Texas, I guess, and the weekend before, and it was just as bad. So,
well, I'll let you know. We're going to Florida in 2 weeks, so we're flying out of Cleveland. Hopefully, it's not like that.
Yeah, especially with all the kids, that's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it'll be a great time.
So, Leon, so first of all, thank you for sharing all that. And before I ask you any question, was there anything else that you were getting into there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, pretty much it was a quick recap of, my beginning, my middle, what happened, my big turning point, and then kind of where I'm going now. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's been awesome to get to know you. So we met in person. Leon and I, like you mentioned, we have known each other for about a year now, a little over a year. And it was pretty awesome to get to connect in person. And what led us to really connecting was you had posted, so again, and I actually, so I give Leon shit for posting in the group all the time, but it was something that I was actually very, it was inspiring, because you were, like you said, hey, the more that I put into this, I was told the more that I'm going to get out of it. So you took that to heart and you were active in the group, which is awesome. And so many people join that and then just take a complete back seat, and then they complain that they're not getting a lot out of it. And it's like, right now I'm not getting a ton out of it, but that's because I haven't been active. And that was a choice that I made to get focused on this, because I was just getting this overwhelmed feeling that I was getting pulled in so many directions. So I'm like, hey, I got to step back from this right now, and I'll get back to it at some point. But so I think you had posted about a house in Colorado. Was it Colorado Springs?
Yeah.
As a potential Airbnb, and we ended up getting on the phone, and we've stayed connected ever since. We stayed with each other at the Airbnb in Austin, which was a blast. And especially since you and I remained sober that entire time, to have somebody there that wasn't drinking was fun. Not that there's anything wrong with parts, for some people to do that. I'm just not big on it anymore either. So, but going back to that, so going through recovery is obviously, it's a massive accomplishment to be able to do that. And it takes a ton of discipline, a ton of emotional intelligence, ownership. I mean, every one of the skills that we talk about. So was there anything specifically, like, out of the ideal skills, intentionality, discipline, emotional intelligence, accountability, and loyalty, that you really had to lean into throughout this continued process, right? Because it's never, that's something that is a lifelong process. It's never over. So is there one or two of those things that you would point to that you really leaned into?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that helps people get through it is the accountability part. The only way to become accountable is to become vulnerable. It's the same thing in any program, really, whether it's mindset or going through AA or NA or whatever program you're in, is the accountability part. And that's the key part of going in. And they basically tell you the first time you're there, like, just get a sponsor. That's your accountability partner. And then share where you're at. And then everybody in that room becomes your accountability partner. And if you don't show up to a meeting, it's not like your friends or even your family members, where, like, they don't see you for like 10 months, but they don't check in on you. These guys, they don't see you for a week or two. They're texting you, they're calling you, like, dude, are you all right? What's going on? Like, can I help you? Can I come over? So it was a lot in the beginning. I had to have the discipline and loyalty to the program to think. I had the discipline to show up, and I had to have the loyalty to understand, like I need it, and I got to be able to continue to go to it, and be understanding that I'm relying on this to save my life, because I didn't know what the program was about when I got in. I thought it was like, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to drink for the next 60 years. So that's what I thought, and then I realized, like, I don't know how to live life at all. I know how to live life for me. I don't know how to live life with other people. And that's what it's taught me.
Now, how long did it take you to buy in on this?
I would say day 3 on the second time. So technically 2014 was the first time I was in. So, I mean, if you go by that route, it's 5 years. Because I knew about it since August 2014. I didn't buy in until May 15th of 2019, which was my third meeting. I walked in, so I'll share because it doesn't bother me anymore. Like, I walked into this meeting, it was in a basement. Now, they're not always all in church basements. This one just happened to be in a church basement. I'm not sitting in a circle and kumbaya or anything like that. So it was just, the tables were set up the way they were set up. We sat in kind of a U, somebody led, and we read through a book. The end of the meeting, the reading stopped. One person before I would have had to read. And so at the end of most meetings, they ask if anybody's sitting on anything and would like to share, please do so now. For some reason, my hand went up. And I told a room full of, I want to say it was 15 people, that I didn't know what I was doing, and I had wanted to kill myself because I had no clue what to do. It had gotten to the point where it was either I take myself out and figure out a way that I can keep my life insurance policy intact, because that's just where my head was at. So my family was covered. Or I have to figure out another way of doing it. And I share this in meetings all the time. It's if you do that, just be prepared for every single person that has good sobriety to come up and talk to you. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, do it, and everybody will show up for you no matter what. So it was nerve wracking because I shared, like, when I was 6, I got picked on at the bus stop. And from that point on, I didn't want to be seen, yet I wanted everybody to like me. So
Right.
for me to do that in a room full of people, I had no idea who it was. It was extremely nerve wracking, but it was the best decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah, courage, loyalty to yourself, loyalty to your family, to your future, to everything that you were talking about there. So yeah, that's incredible. One thing that you just mentioned in there was going back to when you were a kid, and I had this written down actually. So you worked through that shyness. So you had this like internal conflict of you were a super shy kid, but you wanted people to like you. So it almost sounded like there was some misalignment with identity there, which I think everybody at some point in time has experienced, but that really resonates with me. So how did you, because now knowing you, I never pinned you as somebody who was shy. Like you're super social, you're and from my perspective, you're social, you're likable, you're easy to talk to. So was there something that helped you through that you could point to that really got you over that shyness?
So I'm gonna slightly counter that, because if you see me in a networking group around people that I don't know, I look completely lost. Now, however, if I know you like Kyle, or if I know now Randy because of Kyle, you've introduced me, I'm okay talking to you now. But if I'm in, like, if I go to a random networking group by myself, I'm still that weird shy guy in the corner. And because part of it is like I hate interrupting people, because I'm like, I know everyone's there to network, and I've been to 3 networking events in like the last month, and it's something that I'm working on. So it's something that I'm personally working on because I know I need to do it. But the fact that I went through the steps, and I was able to identify certain things, and I was able to rediscover things that made me happy, and not really, I don't want to say not care, but not, how do I want to put it? I can accept that people are going to judge me no matter what, but I don't have to allow it to like affect me. And I can be okay with what I like and what I say and what I feel is right, but I'm also willing to listen to what others think. So when I was able to accept the fact that, one, I'm not always going to be right and I don't have to be, but 2, like, I don't care if somebody says that I'm wrong. When I was able to do those 2 things, like, it just really just helped me like open up. And like I said, sharing behind the computer screen is easy. You can see it. Trolls do it all the time on Twitter and all that stuff. But, like Tyson said, you punch in the mouth and everything changes, right? But, it's really allowed me to I'm very good at putting things into words when I'm typing. I'm not so good when I'm trying to think of everything, because my brain's trying to think one step ahead of me talking. And I've gotten a lot better at that just by making commitments and being around people that know how to do it. My biggest goal and takeaway from the Austin trip was I'm not good at listening. So for me to be able to answer the question that you've asked like this has been a huge step for me, because my wife will tell you I'm not good at listening. We actually just had this conversation at work today. I have a great work-related memory. I have a terrible spouse and family-related memory. So I can remember stuff that goes on at work because I'm like intimately into it. But by the time I get home, I'm probably so mentally burned out that I just don't want to do it, or I just don't want to try it. So I've purposely made myself aware of it, and I challenged myself in a room full of 50 people that were there.
Yeah, at least. I mean, and I think the added level to that, or at least from my perspective, when I was there, was some of those people are, David Osborne's were $250 million,
Yeah.
Paulie Ideary, people that are very successful that we look up to for inspiration and how we want to model our lives after. So I think that adds another level of like, oh man, like I don't want to sound like a loser or trip over my words or sound unconfident or anything like that. So
yeah, so I'm actually closing my email right now because it's distracting me, even though it's on a separate screen. So like I was talking to somebody at the Austin event. I'm like, I'm really trying hard because I just made this commitment like 10 minutes ago. Like, this guy's right in front of me talking to me worth I don't know how much. And I got guys walking in my peripherals, and my head just goes. I do it every time. I do it. My wife gets frustrated by it, but I'm like, I'm purposely trying to just focus on the conversation that I'm having, so that I know I'm listening, and then two, I'm working on the act of interrupting, which I then get to do with networking eventually. To say, hey, like, let me just stop you to make sure I understand what you're saying and what you're asking, and then we can move on. Because if I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer you properly.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I feel like I'm the same way too. Like, someone's talking to me and telling me a story, and they say something that resonates with me, then I'll start thinking about that, and then I completely stop listening to what they're saying. It goes back to the conversation, and I'm like, my wife will be like, what were they talking about? But I don't even know their name, what they were talking about. I'm like, I'm off in left field thinking about my own thing. So I feel you on that.
I recognized that about myself in August of 2019. So I was 90 days in, and I'm like, I shared for like 90 days because like I edited all this shit out. And then I'm like, man, every time somebody's talking, all my mind's doing is saying, oh, you got to talk about that. Oh, you got to talk about that. By the time it was like my turn, I was like, I don't remember what I was going to say, but I'm going to talk anyway. So I got to the point where I was like, I've shared what I needed to share to get people close to me. I've been vulnerable enough, so now I have people in my circle that are helping. Now I need to listen and relate, not compare. So that's where, like, I recognize that about myself almost 4 years ago now, and I'm still working.
Yeah, and I think self-development, anything like that, it's just something, again, that we talk about. It's like you have to focus on the process and enjoy the process, because self-development, there is no end. You're going to do it and evolve your entire life if that's something that you focus on. And that's the beautiful part about it, where if you're enjoying the process, you're appreciating that, you're just focused on progress. It's like, hey, as long as I'm better, one of my daily affirmations that I just recently added is I'm better than I was yesterday. That's my only goal when it comes to self-development. It's not going to happen overnight. There is no end to it. Every day I want to make progress. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I heard a lot of ownership in everything that you just said there, which, accountability. So what we talk about with accountability is it starts external and then you turn it intrinsic and it becomes ownership. And you took a lot of that. It's like, hey, I know that people are going to judge me no matter what. How I react to it, that's totally within my control. And if you take an ownership first approach to life in general, your life becomes so much, I would say, easier, simpler, less complex, more happiness, because you're focused on yourself and not what other people can't control you if you take ownership of every situation that's in front of you. And don't worry so much about the stuff that you can't control. If somebody comes up to me and says something, I used to lose my temper all the time and get in fights and stuff like that. Now you can say whatever you want. I don't care. It might bother me. It might make me angry, but I'm not going to react to that like I used to, because when you lose your temper, and Randy, you brought this up on the show before with Jocko, when you lose your temper, you've just lost all control. You are no longer in control of that situation. So it's important that you leverage that emotional intelligence in those situations. So again, ownership, emotional intelligence, it all comes into play when you're dealing with those situations. Randy, do you have any questions there that you wanted to jump into?
I do. So you mentioned when you were growing up, there were times where you didn't have water or heat, and I was just wondering how that impacted you as a student, like academically. Like, what was your school life like because of that?
I had straight A's up until fourth grade. I think it was the first time I got my first like B, and I was so upset because I was a molded perfectionist that I'm still also recovering from, right? So I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm working through it. I'm using it now as a strength. I'm trying. A big part of that is I'm recognizing like I'm passing that on to my kids right now, and I can see it in my oldest son. And like I got to stop. I've recognized, I've had these conversations with my wife. Like I personally have to stop preventing them from failing, because that's my perfectionist came because I wanted to make everything to be perfect all the time. Everything had to be perfect all the time, which is what was reinforced to me through my dad. It wasn't just go do it. So I'm trying to get to that point where I'm having those conversations with my son too, like openly, like, hey, this is like, I know I've said this before. I said, but just go do it. But he's still afraid. So I'm like, all right, just when you're ready, just go do it. And he does things now, so it's been a lot cooler, like to have those conversations that I never really got to have. And now I lost my train of thought as to where the original question was going. Oh, it's the heat and hot water thing. No, I mean, it never affected me. I didn't. People are probably gonna hate me for saying this. I didn't do homework. Like I didn't do homework even in like college. So like at least not at night. I did it like during school because I was like, it was just too easy. I was in terms of book smartness, like the hardest parts for me were like, I'm not gonna lie, it's like probably the English language was probably the hardest one. Like it was so like, why are you using this and that? I don't know. So geometry was difficult for me, but again, it was probably because of word problems, reading comprehension. Like my mind is reading a question, but it's over here looking at something else. So kind of understanding that. But I mean, that was probably all through just elementary school for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, on and off. It wasn't like it was every day or consistent. It was just some things, that we went through, but it never. I'm going to tell you, it never affected me outside of the home, outside of the fact that like I remember it because I don't ever want to go back there.
Yeah. So one thing so everything that you're describing there, Leon, like the way that when you're reading and when you're having a conversation, those are things that I experience as well. Definitely. I have a hard time when there's motion going on. I'm looking at that. When I'm reading, I'll find myself thinking about something else and I'll read like half a page and then I have to go back to it because I didn't absorb anything. Have you ever been diagnosed with ADHD or anything like that?
So yes, and not. I've taken the test that the doctor gives you, like, hey, can you answer this question? Like, are you fidgety? You're doing this? I'm like, yes. Like, all right, well, you probably have ADHD. I'm like, okay, thanks. So this is the first time, like, I've tried the first medication I tried because when I first started it, I was just coming into recovery, and they were like, I'm like, I don't want to take anything that's addictive. So we started out with like depressants, and that sucked. Like for anybody that deals with depression, I feel like, my heart goes out to them, but they gave me somebody that like, it calmed me down and calmed my brain down. But dude, I lost all sense of wanting to do anything. And I told them, I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. So my not understanding narcotic, or I should say prescription drugs on that level, I just stopped taking them after 30 days. I highly don't recommend that because apparently you're supposed to wean yourself off. So I had headaches and withdrawal effects for like 30 days. I had a headache for 30 days because of that. I didn't realize it, and I probably should have asked my doctor, but this fear of like, I hate asking that stupid question, even though it's for my health. I didn't even think to ask for it, so I just stopped it. And then recently it's been a problem again. So I went and I got a medication. The first medication I got, I took it. My heart was racing, I was sweating. I called the doctor. I was like, I'm not taking this. I just threw it out. And then actually I'm on something else now. It seems to be doing a lot better. It's weird because I'm not sure. Like I can feel when it's wearing off, and I can feel like when I first take it. It's that in between phase that I'm still trying to figure out. I'm only like 2 weeks into it, but I do take medication now for it, and primarily it's just to keep me on track. Because otherwise, I'm like a hamster. Just there's a wheel, there's a ball, there's a water ball, there's a tunnel. Like I'm all over the place.
Yeah. That's what I've never gone to even address it. So I had anxiety so bad that I finally was like, I have to do something. So I went to the doctor. I got prescribed Lexapro, and as soon as I am very against prescription drugs. Like as much as I can stay away from those, I do. But that point in my life, I was like, if I don't do something, this is going to end really badly. So I went and got out of that. And immediately, as soon as I started taking it, my intent was I'm going to get on it. I'm going to take it consistently. And then I'm going to wean myself off of it, which is exactly what I did. I weaned myself off of it as soon as I basically got through a couple months where I was feeling better. and everything like that. Because, and the reason that I brought that up and everything was because I feel like I talk to people so often and I'm like, hey, I'm like, yeah, I feel that way too. I get easily distracted. I have a hard time reading the English language, like everything you were saying resonated with me. And it was like, I've just really had to lean into my discipline, and maybe that's the wrong answer, like maybe I should go get checked out, but I've just really leaned into my discipline to kind of overcome those things, be more mindful of them, and redirect myself as often as I needed to. Because I just, and I'm not saying that that has no reflection of you, like I 100% believe that people need those things in certain cases, but I also feel that as a society, like in the United States, we're just so overly medicated with things that there are other treatments for, exercise, water, a good diet and everything like that. So I was just curious to get your thoughts on your feelings on that one.
Yeah, it's not always my first choice, but I've used them almost as like crutches to get to the point where I'm maybe I get to a point where I don't need it anymore, because I am creating those habits and those things that it's hard to do right now because my mind's racing and I have 2 kids and my wife runs 3 businesses and I have, a couple businesses on the side. Plus I work a day job, and the kids are in school and they have sports. So it's like, and we have a farm with animals, which we didn't even talk about. So, and I'm doing my home renovation, Randy. So I moved my entire kitchen from one side of the house to another. So I understand all of that, and that. So trying to manage all of that just in here doesn't work very well. Because like I said, I'm thinking about one thing and then everything else starts to fall down. So
What kind of animals do we have on this farm?
So right now we have 2 goats, 2 Norwegian dwarf goats. They're short and fat. They call them meat goats. They're like round, they're like almost like Teletubbies on 4 legs. Probably the first time I've said that, but it's pretty much what they look like round bellies. They're awesome, and we have probably like 20 chickens right now. We had ducks, but we have a fox that I haven't been able to get rid of, and he took all the ducks and a lot of the chickens, which cost a lot of money, but it is what it is. And then we have 2 small dogs and 1 larger dog, plus a barn cats for the mice.
Jeez, I mean, to say that you have a lot going on, I think would be a little bit of an understatement, man. And
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. And that's where, I mean, so I think about stuff like that sometimes because I'm like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm so stressed out, and I don't have kids. I don't even have a house right now. I mean, we have 2 rental properties, but I'm living in my mother-in-law's house until we move back to Ohio at the end of the month. We are closing on our house, like officially. We got that notification, but it's like I'm already thinking about how stressed out I'm going to be and how, I'm going to have to be super disciplined with time, being intentional, all of that stuff. So just kudos to you for staying on top of it, because I know that it can be overwhelming, but most people just completely crack under that pressure. And you've kept it together through all that. I'm sure there's been times where it's like, I don't know what I want to lose it, but overall you're doing great.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how do you balance all of that?
So I was actually helpful because I was just about to respond to Kyle. It's all relative, right? So like my situation is relative because this is where I've been at, but I've been doing it for a while, and it hasn't all come at once. It's been slow building. So Kyle, for where you're at, it may be that's what you're learning to, but at some point, in a year from now, this is going to be easy. It's going to be like, all right, well, yeah, that's fine. I'll get this done, or I'll have somebody do this. I'll have somebody do that. And then the kids come in, and I didn't know how to be a dad. I had no idea.
Yeah, I still don't know how to do that, and I got 3 kids.
Yeah, right. So you just right. So you just
right.
You manage it, and that's where having a good partner is helpful. Sometimes I wish like my partner was the same as me, but then I realized it probably wouldn't be very good. So my wife is very good at planning, birthdays and stuff to do with the family and things of that nature, where I'm like, all right, we're going to go on vacation. All right, we'll go next week and we'll go here. Like, she's like, no, we're going to go 6 months from now. This is what we're going to do. And she plans out like a whole itinerary. So I don't have to do anything. I just have to show up and just go through the motions, and it's beautiful. I love doing that. You know, she'll get my input on certain things, like, hey, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to do that? Yes, yes, sure, sounds good. But we, you know, we just had a pretty lengthy, tough conversation yesterday, because, you know, there's a lot of trauma in, you know, from our first 7 years of marriage, I guess it would be, from 2012 to 2019. So, you know, I wasn't communicative. We didn't really talk about things. So we've built a lot better communication relationship, but I still struggle with it. Primarily me. We're kind of similar in the fact that we don't like bringing up things because we think we're going to hurt the other person because of all the trauma that we've been through, like walking on eggshells kind of stuff. But just transitioning that now, and just having the conversation the other day of like, hey, you know, we need to do something different. Something's broken and it's not working right now. But we recognize it and we talked about it, and we're going to start to set up something that I've been wanting to do. I'm great at saying like, hey, we should do this. And then I'm like, I wait for her to do it. It's like, I brought it up, so like, you should do it. Like, that's how my mind's like thinking. And like, if she doesn't bring it up or bring it up clearly, which we talked about yesterday, like, if you want me to sit down and talk about something specifically, you have to tell me what it is. Like, I don't like reading between the lines again. Just tell me what you want to talk about and we'll sit down and talk. So we're going to designate a specific day and time every week just to review where we're at. What's going on? What do we have coming up? What do you need help with? What do the kids have when they get back? Because they're each going to be in different sports, and trying to get them into a mixed martial arts type program. So that's heavy. It's a lot of time. And then we know what's going on with the business. What do you need help with? My wife hopefully I don't get this wrong so she doesn't yell at me later. She's an event designer, stylist, and florist, furniture rental, installation setups. So primarily it started out as in weddings, or they didn't want to do weddings, but it's just the way that the market transitioned, or that sector transitioned to them. And they built a lot of stuff through that. But, you know, it's stuff that a lot of times they're building stuff for installations. And, you know, when I brought up a comment about something, it was during a very stressful time. So it got taken the wrong way. And I was like, hey, no, I just want to be like, if you have something that you're presenting, and I want to make sure that you guys are, one, committing to something that you can actually produce. And two, I can give you an idea of like, hey, what all is going to be needed so you can price them properly. That's all. So like the last thing, like they didn't lose money on it, because, you know, I did most of the work. So in terms of at least cutting it and assembling it, they did all the pretty stuff. But, you know, it's like, I looked at the material cost alone, and I was like, you guys already undersold this. But I probably said it just like that. Like, I was like, you guys probably lost money. And then that obviously doesn't come off well. So it's just little conversations like that, just having those, being able to then, that's going to help us manage it all. Like, coming back to the initial question, right? That's just going to help us create plans and put them in place. I don't like sitting down and creating daily plans. I hate doing it. I know there's some people that love it. I know there's some people that benefit from it greatly, but I also know there's people that don't do it because it just doesn't work with the way they work. I'm okay with blocking out stuff, but it is something that we struggle with in terms of like boundaries and blocking out certain things and making sure that we're creating space for like the stuff that is important to like our family, like our household. And it's very difficult. And we come from different family backgrounds, so it's always a struggle, but it's a lot to manage. But like I said, it's all relative depending on the stage you're in and the part of the journey that you're in. And as things become commonplace, they become easier and become habitual, right? So, you know, getting my kids to school or waking up to make lunches during the school year becomes a lot easier because I'm used to doing it. So it doesn't take any extra time out of my day. It's just there's one less, you know, maybe like 10 minutes less of myself in the morning before I have to get out the door, or maybe I'm 10 minutes late. Thankfully, my job isn't like clock watchers. So if I'm 10 minutes late, I say 10 minutes late, or, you know, whatever it is.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing all that. So Randy, you good to get into the 3 wrap-up questions?
Absolutely. Kyle, let's do it.
Yeah, why don't you kick us off then? After you take a gigantic gulp.
Let me take some of that water because I'm trying to get that gallon in for today.
Attaboy.
All right, so I'll start with the first question. So, of the ideal skills that we've already talked about, intentionality, discipline, emotional intelligence, accountability, and loyalty, which one would you say that you struggle with the most? And then what are you doing to help yourself grow in that area?
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me right now is emotional intelligence, and I say that in the sense of like just kind of talking through with what I talked about with my wife. Like, I tend to struggle a lot with emotions in general. For a while, like I said, I masked them for a really long time, so I didn't really have them. But like, I don't deal with loss and setbacks the same way as I see a lot of people, and I have to be okay with it. But at the same time, like, it does affect certain aspects of my life with my relationships and stuff like that. Like when someone's sharing loss, like, I just got to be, I'm trying to focus and be aware of it and talking with other people in my program and saying, like, that's where my step is to go. It's like, I have to like share this with people close to me that I trust and say, hey, I know you have a similar thought process to me. Like, how do you handle stuff like this? So like now, so when I get to my wife and certain things like that, and like she wants me to sit down and talk and focus and listen to stuff that, and we told her yesterday, I gotta be honest, I don't necessarily enjoy or care about. It sounds terrible, but like it doesn't make me happy, but it makes her happy. So like, how do I handle that? And so it's going to find those guys and in my program and just talking to them about it and say, hey, this is a situation. Like, what did you do, or what did you do? Who did you talk to in order to figure out that next step? On how to get better at it. So I could try to read books on it. I listen to a lot more now, which I like because I listen to them like 3 or 4 times. I'm driving back and forth to work. But I did listen to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which was very insightful, not only into my wife, but into myself. Like realizing the stuff that like the clarity thing, right? So when she asked me something, like if you leave it open-ended, chances are like I either 1, don't want to answer it, or 2, I'm not gonna understand what you're asking. Like trying to think of the example we just had, but it was just like hey, do you want to sit down? Like, yeah, what for? Like, let's sit down and talk about this. All right, cool, I'm in. Like, if you leave it like, hey, do you want to sit down and talk? I'm like, everything in here? No, I don't. So I'm just going to go back into the bedroom and lay down.
Yeah. So setting that clear expectations about like what the conversation is about. And I think with all of these skills, I find it most challenging in my relationship with my wife. For some reason, like I have such an easy time, I wouldn't say easy, but an easier time being intentional, being disciplined, emotionally intelligent, accountable, loyal when it comes to like professional relationships or when I was a leader, stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I wasn't perfect by any means and I've gotten a lot better, but that relationship that you're closest to, I find is always the most challenging. And I haven't quite put my finger on why that is yet, but it definitely puts things to the test. But I will say that as I've grown in all of these areas, my relationship with my wife has just become exponentially better. And for me, like really leaning into that discipline with a lot of things, that's what it's all about. And we have that intentional conversation every week too. At least once a week, we just sit down and just talk about whatever's on our mind, whatever we need, help, whatever it is. And that alone has gone such a long way. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So as you were talking, one thing in those weekly conversations, and one of the things that in that closest relationship is like I couldn't necessarily tell you what my wife's goals are, which if I don't know those, like how do I know what she needs? Right. And I've expressed mine, but it's not like we've written them down together. So like, what are your goals for the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years? Like, what do you want to do? And in business, it's very easy because there's a goal, there's an end game. Like, I got to get this project done. I know what needs to be done. Boom, easy. Communications there, the laughter is there, whatever it is, the hard times are there, but we work through it because we know what needs to be done at the end of the day. But just because of what you just shared, it just kind of like opened me up. Like, I don't know what my wife's goals are. I know what her business goals are. But there's a lot of other stuff. Like, I know what my goals are because I've written them down. I went through the program. I went through the Emerge course. I haven't looked at them since I wrote them down, but I wrote them down. So I have an idea of what they are. But that's definitely something that I think will help not only the relationship, but the emotional intelligence, because I'll be able to understand like where it's going. And that's my mind needs that.
That's a great point. Yeah. No, I've never thought about that either. But and I think, again, having that intentional conversation, that's a good point to bring up. And that's something that I think Callie and I have shared just naturally, are those goals and what our life looks like and vision. And one thing that I suggest is sit down and daydream together. Like, just, hey, if what does life look like for you in 5 years? If you could just everything that you wanted. We did that recently. I heard it on that Mileage show, I think it was. And so we were talking about daydreaming, and they hadn't done, no, that was on Tribe of Millionaires. That was Jamie's podcast. And I can't remember who he was interviewing, but Chris Harder, I think maybe his name is, I don't remember, but yeah, it was super insightful. So Callie and I decided to do that day, and it was just awesome. Just having fun and thinking about no holds barred, no restrictions. Money's not a problem. What does life look like? And it was pretty incredible. So that's awesome. So next question, I think you might have already answered it, and if you have, that's okay. But what's one recent book or podcast that you've listened to or read that's had like a big impact on
you? So I have two, and one is very cliche, but it was, again, coming from the place that I came from. It wasn't something I ever thought about, and that was the Rich Dad Poor Dad. Thinking of things as assets versus liabilities. I never realized, like, technically my house is a liability. It's not an asset unless you're able to produce income from it, which we're working on. But it's all stuff that I didn't realize. I've spent too much money on stuff that I don't need, that I don't have anymore. Maybe either thrown away or given away because it didn't satisfy me anymore. So that was a big one. And then there's a book called Drop the Rock. So I've read this through. It's not considered AA literature, but it's an AA recommended book. And it's really about dropping that thing that's weighing you down. Everybody else can see it, and everybody else tries to tell you about it, right? So there's, I forget the whole story, but there's somebody swimming across the lake or whatever it is, the river, and they're stuck and they're starting to drown. But they can't see that there's a rock tied around their neck or their foot or whatever it was. Everybody else can see it, but they can't see it. All they're just yelling is drop the rock, drop the rock, drop the rock. Drop the one thing that's weighing you down the most, so you can go to them. Just continue to go up. And it's not everything in one shot. I do that in step work, you do that. It's step 4. You write down all the bad crap about yourself, all your defects of character. And then you just work on one at a time. And then eventually they don't go away. What they do is they go from number 1 to number 21. And then as you work on the other ones, maybe they come back up. But dropping that thing that's just weighing you down the most, mine is that fear of being seen. Like, that was the biggest thing holding me back. Like, I didn't want to be seen. So what do I got to do? Get on a podcast where 400 people are going to watch me. It's not. It's not that.
Well, hopefully now that you're on, our viewers will just skyrocket.
At least to 401 or 402.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, Randy, you got the last question, and then we will wrap it up.
I mean, you pretty much already answered this with what you just said with Drop the Rock. But if you could give one piece of advice that you could give to our listeners, other than what you just said, or you could elaborate on that if you want to, what would it be?
Just say the exact same thing.
or you could just say the exact same thing. Yeah.
I can assure you, without re-listening to this, I have no idea what I've said this entire podcast. I do the same thing with my shares. I tell people, like, look, by the time I get done this, you guys are going to remind me of everything I said, and I'm going to forget all of it. No, so it's actually none of that. And the biggest thing for me is, I guess it's kind of related to it, but when you're not sure what you want and you resonate with somebody online, and this is because online social media is easy, just reach out to them. I don't care who it is. The guy reached out to Nick Santonasso. I had no idea who he was. He had millions of followers. Why would you want to talk to me? This kind of thing. And sure, it's a coaching program, but again, I've grown to understand like how important those are. Find somebody that you resonate with. It can be somebody in your circle. It can be somebody on social media. It can be a friend of a friend. It doesn't have to be anybody you know. It can be some random person that just popped up in your feed. And just reach out to them. If they resonate with you or they're doing what you think you want to do, reach out to them and start the process. And again, if it's something that maybe you don't have the money for, there's somebody else at least that's doing something similar. So I'm happy to talk to whomever for whatever reason. I love the idea of coaching. I don't love the idea of doing it myself. So I praise you two for doing this, because I got to be honest, I don't know if I want to do it on your level, but I love helping people one-on-one in the moment. So if you can find that, that's my biggest thing, is just take the action to just do something different. If you're feeling stuck and you see something or hear something, comment on the post, send them a direct message, reach out to them, share the thing and tag them or whatever it is. Because usually when you ask somebody for help and say like you're truly honest with the ask, a lot of times, depending on who the person is. Now, if it's like, Brad Lee or somebody, may not be like, they may not respond.
Yeah.
Right. But there will be people that, as long as you put heartfelt honesty into it and you're committed to it, and you actually acknowledge what was in the post, it's not just like, hey, I saw your post and it sounded cool. Like, hit on something that that resonated with you, so that they understand, like, all right, this person's really truly watching, and then see what happens. If it doesn't happen, oh well, do it again or go to somebody else. Just do it. I didn't get the job that I'm in now. I emailed them for 9 months before they even responded to me. I don't know why. I just did it because I guess it was something that I really wanted at the time. So that would be my big push for whoever's listening.
I like it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So for those people out there listening, if they wanted to reach out to Leon Wright, how would they do that?
That's a good segue.
Oh man, that's a good question. So I have a personal Instagram, but I also have it's hard to say. I probably made it too complicated. So because my brain likes to overcomplicate things, I made a TikTok and a Instagram page called Investing in Life Made Easy. So at first I just kind of started just submitting some stuff, just talking about what's on top of my head, a lot of stuff that I've shared today. But Investing in Life Made Easy, which isn't easy because I overcomplicated the damn title. But it made it a lot easier, right? Like ideal, that's easy.
Yeah,
well,
one word. We're simple-minded.
Yeah, ideal _ podcast. So yours is just one word, which is easier. Had you added a bunch of hashtags and underscores, dollar signs, and everything in life, or in there, and I love that. Investing in life, matey. Like I resonate with that. I think it's awesome. I love the name there.
Yeah, that's probably the two easiest because they're both public platforms. Everything else I have is private, so like, I don't mind it, but start there, and then as things work out, it's easy to find my other ones through that one. So
yeah, I'll put your personal email and the cell phone in the podcast.
Yeah, that's fine.
Your address, too.
whatever you need, I'll help whoever wants to call. Just no telemarketers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, thank you for everything. Thank you for the authenticity, the vulnerability, everything that you shared with us. That's awesome. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. So thanks again for the time. Randy, you got any last words?
No, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on, man. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon, Kyle. I know it won't be in Chicago, but you got big things going on. So maybe it'll be Fiji next.
Maybe it will be. All right, Randy, I think you got
Randy
one.
Will come too.
Maybe.
Fiji sounds way better than Ohio or Texas. So
it does. Well, it's pouring in Ohio right now. So
same here.
It means it's coming here.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Randy?
All right. Bye.
Hey everybody, if you liked what you heard today, please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And don't forget to head to Eventbrite and grab one of the 10 tickets available for our monthly Ideal Connect call. Then when you're ready to take the next step, message us on any of our social media pages to book a free coaching consultation call to see how we can help you start living your own ideal life. Thanks again for all of your love and support, and always remember, you have everything you need to achieve success. It's just a matter of believing.